Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Whatcom County Council meeting for June 27th, 2017. Could you please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner.
Here.
Red Brown.
Here.
Barry Buchanan.
Here.
Todd Donovan.
Here.
Ken Mann.
Here.
Satpal Sidhu.
Here.
Carl Weimer.
Here. Thank you. Please rise and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a couple of quick announcements. If you have your cell phone with you tonight, please either turn it off or put it on vibrate. And if you'll be handing out any paperwork to council members during the open session, please make sure our staff over here gets a copy for their records. We have two sets of minutes to approve tonight. One is Special Committee of the Whole for May 30th, 2017. The other is Regular County Council for May 30th, 2017. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We will now have our public hearing. Anyone who has signed up for the public hearing at the back of the room prior to the meeting will be called first and asked to form a line on either side. If you didn't get a chance to sign up before the meeting, don't worry, you will be able to testify. Each speaker gets 3 minutes. You'll be clued when you have 30 seconds left, and then you'll be told when your time is up. Each speaker should state his or her name for the record, and we would like you to speak directly into the microphones, if you would. So our public hearing tonight is on an ordinance establishing the speed limit on a portion of North Shore Road. Do we have any staff report, Joe?
Do we need it?
Very brief. This is as you leave the city of Bellingham and head out North Shore Drive. It's 25 in the city. It remains 25 until you get past Eagle Ridge. Then it goes to 35 into the county, and then it goes to 40 at Y Road. I know this road a lot. We get a lot of differential speed in there. Some people going 35, some people going much faster than 40. So after a lot of contemplation, this is not a new issue, although a petition was sent in from the neighbors. We've been contemplating this for years. We decided to recommend going to 35 for the entire length of the road for consistency.
Ms. Brenner.
Since you are up there, so the 25 changes to 35 immediately as it leaves the city?
Actually, you know, it does not. It remains 25 out till Eagle Ridge. I think I said that wrong. And then it turns to 35 at Eagle Ridge. And Eagle Ridge is actually in the county.
But, so it's the county, part of the county, it's 25?
Very small amount.
Why didn't we change it there?
Because when Eagle Ridge went in, which is a large subdivision, they then continue it to 25 miles an hour out to their entrance and then go to 35 after that. And then now we would request that it be 35 all the way to the end of the road.
Wait, Joe,
One more question.
just so I understand fully, was there any consideration to making it 30 for that entire stretch? Because I think their original request was 30 miles an hour.
We were certainly looking at all the different speeds, and we did not feel it would be appropriate to lower it to 30 based on the existing speed. As you've heard me say before, that black and white sign out there that we're going to place that said 35 miles an hour, that tells the sheriff's officers what they get to write the ticket for. It doesn't influence driver behavior as much as we'd like it. So people are driving that. I try to avoid a technical term called the 80th percentile, but anything less than 35 miles an hour would be artificially low, and it would become a enforcement issue for the sheriff and would introduce speed differential with some people driving what is comfortable, which would be much higher than that.
There's some pretty narrow twists and turns and not so many shoulders on that road and bikers out there. I mean, I was driving back there the other day around sunset and I was very aware of like the shadows and just felt really a situation where caution was warranted. And then this just came through after that.
And I'll ask to have that discussion when I'm back in front of you at the 6-year program and annual construction, because the North Shore Road is a project on the 6-year program. And now we've talked about in the future what that project is. Is it curb gutter, sidewalk, and bike lanes? Or is it shared use shoulder? And also, as we talked about, stormwater improvements would be a big part of that project also, and right-of-way acquisition, which would be very expensive.
I won't be here for that conversation, Joe, so I'll tell you my opinion now.
You can come to the meeting.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I'll sign up and testify.
Any more questions? Okay, thanks, Joe. We will open the public hearing. We have one person signed up, and that's John Campbell.
John Campbell. Road signs are for drivers that are unfamiliar with the road. Drivers that use the road daily don't need signs. They usually do quite well without them. They're familiar with the road. I'm one of those unfamiliar drivers out on North Shore Drive, and I do need them. So I know there's 3 different speed limits out there, and I don't have a lot of trouble with that, other than sometimes I lose track which section of road I'm on due to not knowing the road well, and I have a tendency to sightsee. It's very scenic out there if you've been out there. And then somebody's on my bumper, and I have to jump back into reality and remind myself, what speed am I supposed to be going? There have been studies by the federal and state transportation systems that looked into the effects of speed reductions and increases and found that driver speeds changed very little. People tend to drive at whatever speed they're comfortable with. Lowering the speed limit from 40 to 30 most likely won't change the speed driven by the majority of drivers unless it's combined with enforcement. This road's not bicycle or pedestrian friendly because there's no shoulders. So they have to ride or walk on the traveled portion of the roadway. This section might be better served with a pedestrian advisory sign, which is a W11-2, or known by some as the stick man. I think the best plan for now is a speed reduction to 35 and continuing to research other improvements somewhere here in the near future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak to us about speed limits on North Shore? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. What's the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate what John just said. I was leaning towards the 30, but it is true that people are going to do what feels comfortable unless we have, am I talking in the mic okay? People are going to do what they're going to do unless we have enforcement. And if we have enforcement on something that's not reasonable, it would just seem more to people like a speed trap rather than something reasonable. So I'm fine with going with the 35. We got some emails too on this, and there were a number of people who signed that petition, which, I thought was pretty neat. And so I'm very sympathetic, but I don't think changing the speed limit is going to change the behavior, whereas I don't like going from, one to another. That's what's bothered me all along. I'll talk to you about some places on Northwest that does that. I think I already have, that do that. So I think we have to kind of, at this point, find a place where going from one speed to another and not changing it to a third speed is way safer than the other kinds of changes that we make, and we should be reconsidering how we do it on a lot of other roads in Whatcom County too.
Anyone else?
It's not clear. Is Ms. Brenner making an amendment to move it to 35?
No, the motion is 35.
No, it says 30.
What?
That was the initial petition, but I think the ordinance is.
The petition's
Yeah.
30, but the
Yeah.
thing is for 35. That's what came forward from
Yeah.
Public Works.
Okay, but page 293 of the packet, which is the ordinance, proposed ordinance, is set at 30 miles an hour.
I don't think so. 293?
Yeah. It's true. The
Huh.
memo says 35, and the ordinance says 30.
Well, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
I looked at your memo. I didn't even look
I
at it.
apologize for the confusion, Jerry Tan with
Yeah.
Public Works, for the record.
Nice catch.
It is a very good catch. We are proposing 35 miles an hour for consistency from where it turns to 25 to 35. It'll be 35 for the rest of the way. So North Shore would be 35 miles an hour for its entire length in the county, except for the short portion from the city of Bellingham limits to the entrance of Eagle Ridge. And so I will make that change for the council staff
So-
and have it in front of you.
Do we have to amend it to do it then?
I
Or-
believe you would.
Okay.
Mr. Weimer?
Can we pass it this evening with an amendment?
Oh, good
Since it
question.
says in one place 35 and.
That's a pretty substantive change.
Is it?
Yeah. Karen, what Karen said it was
You're okay?
probably. Seemed like a typo to
I hate
me.
these-
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it
it
was a
does.
typo.
There's inconsistent information in the packet. But it was probably advertised at 30,
Yeah,
Huh.
that's the
so
point.
I don't know if
that's
it was.
So.
is
what do we-
that
Good catch, Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
substantial?
Right.
I mean,
If it was advertised at 30, I think we should
yeah.
do
That's
it
what the
over
public hearing
delayed it.
was.
public hearing.
There's no hurry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will resubmit this. I apologize.
Oh,
That's
boy.
okay.
You won't have to make a presentation. next
So
time.
we need a motion withdrawal?
I move that we withdraw the motion. Oh, sorry, who made the motion?
I didn't make the motion.
You did.
Oh, is that why you're looking at me? Okay. I withdraw my motion.
Okay. Moving right along. We'll now move into our open session. Same thing as the public hearing. We would like you to state your name and your topic of interest, and you'll have 3 minutes. You'll be given 30-second warning and then told when you're done. Go ahead.
My name is Leslie Honcoop. My husband and I grow raspberries in North Whatcom County, and I'm here to give comment on the recent review of the Critical Areas Ordinance and some proposals regarding ag. As a berry farmer, I have to say that I don't know many berry farmers that have a farm plan, but I do know that the majority of berry farmers have GAP certification, which is good agricultural practices. And many of our buyers require that we have good agricultural practices programs and that we have passed an audit by USDA. Now, good agricultural practices address growing water, growing areas, adjacent lands, use of pesticides, use of any soil amendments, harvest practices, personnel training. We write detailed standard operating procedures for all these different areas for our farm. We are required to document them and keep these documents to be examined by our auditor, and as well they come during our harvest season to see what practices we are using. Our goal, of course, is to keep our food products from any contamination or risk thereof. And so we are doing our best to keep our water clean. It is tested 3 times per season. We are keeping our soil clean because we don't want to have any risk of contamination. And the benefit is that whatever water we use that goes back into the aquifer is not going to harm the aquifer, and our soils are not going to leach things that will harm the aquifer. And so I would just ask that the county council would consider, before perhaps mandating farm plans for all farms, that they would look into the requirements of our GAP programs and consider whether what we are already doing is along the lines of what a farm plan would do, and if it would be necessary to mandate that. Another issue I would like to bring up was regarding the triggering of a land disturbance permit. If you raise the level or drop the level of the soil plus or minus 12 inches, a lot of berry farmers are using hills, and some of those hills are 12 inches, so that would trigger a land disturbance permit. But this is a practice that is used to help keep the water in the field where it is best used. It's in effect a mechanical way to avoid
30
root
seconds,
rot
please.
in the plants, and it keeps us from using more chemicals, which only helps keep the water cleaner. Thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Yes.
Ms. Hunt, go ahead.
Mr. Brown has a question for you.
I'm very interested in your earlier comment, and could you possibly send us a copy of what you would provide Global Gap? I'd actually prefer if it was redacted and didn't identify the farm or the farmer, if that's
Okay.
possible.
My GAP program is probably 300 to 400 pages. Would you like to see?
Well, yeah, but I'd be perfectly frank, I don't want any confidential information
Okay.
being part of being subject to being part of the public record, which is why I was asking for a redacted version.
Okay, perhaps I will send the growing water and the growing area
Sure.
examples.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Mr. Chair, I had a comment also for you. I think what we were discussing, I'm a little bit more familiar with what berry farmers are doing and what our discussion was. Our discussion was today about the critical areas ordinance. What we are proposing to the staff, that if the farmers are already doing some other kind of plan, including GAP, and they address the critical areas, parts of that is related to critical areas ordinance, then they do not have to write a new plan. Now, the question I have is that there are several private companies who are providing, Primus GFS and Global Gap from Germany and other places. So the issue is that staff would not know which private company has included the chapter on the critical areas ordinance or not. So just having a GAP plan does not satisfy in every case. But we were talking about is that to instruct the farmers or let them know that the person who's writing your GAP plan, if you let them know, please include a chapter on critical areas ordinance, it will be probably extra 2 hours for that person, okay? Then you may qualify. So it's not an automated, because what you are writing GAP plan is for entirely different purposes because it's market driven.
True.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I did attend the class for 3 days on GAP program, so I'm familiar with that. But we are trying to reduce the burden on the farmer that they don't have to go repeat the same thing again. But it's
appreciate
not
that.
true in every case that it should be blanket exemption.
I appreciate that observation. Yes, I understand.
Okay.
Ms. Brenner?
Would you make sure and send whatever you're going to send to the whole council? Because I'd like to see it too.
I will. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
And I just want to be clear, I'm happy to look at anything you send me. I just want you to be aware that anything you send me by public law is going to be, it's publicly accessible, so I'm just cautioning you to send me stuff that you're happy.
Okay, I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi there, I'm Lad Shumway, and I am a fourth generation dairy and berry farmer here in Whatcom County, and I'm also the ag teacher at Linden High School, and I've been teaching agriculture and been the FFA advisor for a long time, 37 years. So I'm here also to speak a little bit about the possible inclusion of the 4-H and FFA kids and the requirements that they might possibly have to have a farm plan because they have animals, all right? And I think that it would be a burden on them, the 4-H and FFA kids, to try to develop a farm plan because of the extra paperwork and if there's possible cost involved. You know, most 4-H and FFA kids that raise animals at home, they have very small amounts of animals, maybe 2 pigs, 3 sheep, 10 pygmy goats. And so I don't think the effect of that agricultural practice, that is minimal. All right, and so I don't think that they should be, 4-H and FFA kids should be included in a requirement that they have to have a farm plan in order to keep an animal at their house. So I would urge the council to exempt those people, 4-H and FFA members, if we move towards having farmers small farmers having a farm plan. Then also on that issue, you know, you have medium-sized farms, people with small amounts of berries like myself, because I have chamois berries and I have 6 acres of strawberries, raspberries, blueberries. So I don't have a gap plan because I don't sell commercially, but I'm proposing to the council that possibly a similar type of program like the septic system program that we have in Whatcom County, where maybe, you know, smaller farmers could receive some training online or in public sessions and then have guidance and fill out a farm plan that way without having to hire hiring a consultant to do a big giant farm plan for, 5 acres of berries or 10 Hereford heifers running around on your farm.
30 seconds, please.
So I just like to encourage the council to consider those things. Where I think everybody agrees that agriculture is a very important industry in our county, and that we shouldn't overburden all of us with excessive, paperwork and regulations. As if we don't farm the land, then what will happen to the land? Thank you.
Ms. Brenner.
And I don't know if this covers what you're talking about. There's type 1, type 2, and type 3 now, and I don't think they're very well defined, but type 1 is supposed to be low impact, and we had some discussion about it today, and it was my understanding that somebody could do that themselves, or a neighbor could help them do a type 1. I'm not positive. Yeah? Okay, so it may cover what you're talking about, but I know who you are. I can look into it, and I'll get back to you, but I think it's covered, maybe?
I just wanted to add what Ms. Brenner has said. It's already taken care of in that sense that there is a template available from Whatcom Conservation District, and you can take that template, fill it out yourself. It's actually simpler than even septic. It's already there, and you can get help from them free.
So, will a 4-H or an FFA member?
Yes, all those, if
Yeah.
there is, like type 1, type 2, I would just suggest you should look it up or ask WCD people. They will inform you what type 1, 2, and 3 are, and in my belief, you will be only type 1, and you can write your own plan. It could be only 2 or 3 pages. Just define the characteristics and everything, and that's all you need.
Okay. I'm lukewarm to that idea, as I've dealt with a lot of 4-H and FFA kids in the past 37 years. And usually it's a monumental task just to talk them into raising their 3 market pigs over at their grandpa's old barnyard. And the amount of instruction that I have to give those kids just on the feeding and cleaning and animal husbandry of it to get them to do the project, that's short term, that starts in April and ends at the fair. I mean, now if we add another layer on that, and I say, sure, it'll be easy to go to the conservation district and fill out a plan, that's way easier said than done. those types of kids will then just say, no, I'm out. So then, have we really promoted agriculture?
Can I just, actually, you can prepare a template with no name and everything and help them, but we can talk offline, so don't want to waste everybody's time.
Okay,
But we can make it easier, we totally understand where you're coming from.
all right.
And
Because this is issue in Meridian School also.
Oh, countywide,
Yes.
yes?
I'd just like to add, there is no intention to discourage kids
Yeah,
from participating
that's
in
not-
4-H.
Not at all.
Right, but every layer
No, and
every
I-
layer that we add to it discourages people from doing it.
No, I fully respect that, and let's, as Mr. Sadhu suggested, talking, and we're very keen on feedback.
Yeah.
We don't want to create a barrier.
Okay?
Ms. Brenner?
Yeah, we have never brought up FFA or any of that, and you make a really good point.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
All
I
right,
think we should talk about exempting,
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
for saying
like
that.
I'd also like to add that there's been some discussion in some of the local media, blogs and so forth, that we have intentions that we actually don't have. We've never stated those intentions.
Yeah.
We've never expressed those intentions, but others have picked it up and are making a big issue out of something we've never said. So I just want to be aware of that. So,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
My name is Robert Wilson. I'm a senior. I'm a resident of Whatcom County. I live on Mission Road. In 2009, my wife and I purchased a property in Whatcom County in R5A zoning designation. We have a 10-acre plot, and our understanding was that we would be allowed to have a second residence on that property. Now, last October, there was a group of unelected, self-interested individuals who persuaded a judge somewhere that perhaps they should have the right to interfere with that process. Our property represents our biggest single asset by far. It's a very important part of our retirement plan. And suddenly we discovered that there was effectively a moratorium on any additional wells. And as you can appreciate, if you have land in the countryside and you do not have water, you have a piece of land that has a virtual value of zero. It can't be developed. It can't be used for what we are trying to do, which is non-commercial organic gardening. And at the time this decision came down, I didn't see this council standing up for the tens of thousands of individual property owners in this county that are affected by this. And it puzzles me that we haven't been able to address this situation in a fair way. I want to point out two very ironic situations. One is that when I use water on our land, somewhere in excess of 90% of that goes right back into the water table. So effectively, I am using a negligible quantity of water that is otherwise available for aquifers or the Nooksack River. The other ironic point that I want to point out is when, and I believe it applies to most of the individuals involved in the organization behind this moratorium, they get their water from well up the middle fork of the Nooksack River. There's a diversion, there's a pipeline, brings that water into Lake Whatcom. From there it goes almost directly into the city water system. When that water is used, does it get returned even to the lower reaches of the Nooksack Basin or any watershed for that matter?
30 seconds,
No, it gets
please.
piped right to the ocean. It seems to me they've got it all quite upside down and backwards. I am expecting the council to start to support the tens of thousands of individuals out there who are affected by this. It seems that we really haven't been well represented on this issue. Thank you very much for your time.
Ms. Brenner?
Could you leave your phone number? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Eldred, and I'm here to talk to you in regard to the proposed changes in the critical area ordinance, especially farms plan that could hurt 4-H and FFA projects. As a current FFA and 4-H member that is very active in the livestock industry, it doesn't make sense to make these changes. When you take in consideration on how much it costs to raise an animal, we are not making enough money to keep raising one, with the potential added cost of having a farm plan. For example, let's take a market hog. The cost of the animal is $150. Grain is $350. Bedding, $75. And miscellaneous, which includes bedding or wormer and vet, is $50. The total from this is $625. Now, for a first-time pig owner, you have the added cost of the water, feeder, housing, and show supplies, which is an added $390, which your estimated value for raising a market hog is $1,000. As you can see, it costs a lot to raise a market hog, and that is coming out of the 4-H or FFA students' pocket. If you have ever been to an auction, you know that the students that sell their animals don't make a lot of money. For example, in my experience, after paying all the above costs, I would make between $50 and $100 plus sponsorship for 4 months of work. Any cost that would come from having a farm plan would eat out of the profit I have made. It would most likely make me lose money. That financially makes it impossible for a 4-H or FFA student to have a project animal. Now, let me tell you from a different point of view. As a local farm store owner, we want to support every kid that walks through that door. We want to do this because they are the future for agriculture. Please, don't discourage them, because there is not a lot of agriculture within my generation anymore. There used to be about 500 dairies in Whatcom County. Now there are about 100 dairies. Let me ask you, would you like to drink milk from who knows where? Or would you like to drink milk from a local dairy farm that you know where it came from? It's the same with your meat. 4-H and FFA students are raising local quality meat to bring awareness to agriculture. There are so many people out there that believe their food comes from a grocery store, which then that meat could be imported from one of 29 countries that have very low standards of low quality control. Or you could support local 4-H and FFA agriculture and have very high standards of the product we produce. These folks think that their food comes from a grocery store and have no idea of the countless hours of hard work and determination that the 4-H and FFA students have put into their projects. Adding a farm plan to every 4-H or FFA student that only has an animal for 4 to 6 months out of the year is pointless due to the fact that these projects are not year-round and not being raised on commercial farms. If these proposed changes are approved, there will be most likely be a large decrease in locally sourced food products, and all our food will come from low quality standards being imported from around the world. I would ask you to not import blanket farm plans on hobby farms in Whatcom County. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Could you leave your number?
Yes.
I left it. She's our encyclopedia.
No, okay, I'm Larry Helm, I'm a
Oh, Larry, are you
small
gonna
farmer,
bring us?
and I'm here tonight as the supervisor, chair for the Whatcom County Conservation District, and I'm shocked at what I'm hearing. I get calls every week from people that have been visited by your county inspectors, and they're not differentiating between 4-H and FFA. If they go down Hemi Road and they see an animal, they stop. They don't ask if the parents' kids are FFA or not. They're just there because there's an animal and they're looking for the nexus of what the problem is. And with potential to pollute, they're there. And if you go out on Hemi, Goshen, Central, any of those roads and go up and down and look at all the loss of animals in the last 5 years, ask yourself where all those animals went. The animals went because a farm plan, we can't do a farm plan at the Conservation District for less than $800. The taxpayers are paying that. To implement it, you're gonna have normally $500 to $1,000, and there's cost share. The cost share is going away, it's drying up. There's a tsunami coming from the new federal Trump administration. They are cutting all these environmental grants off. And so I'm shocked that you think that your staff, your inspectors from Public Works are out there differentiating between FFA and 4-H or any program. And I'm here to say that we're backed up on farm plans at the Conservation District. We do not have enough trained staff, nor can we get trained staff to do all the farm plans just for the CAFO permit changes. CAFO, Concentrated Animal Feeding Operation, you all know what I'm talking about. That all happened this year. We haven't caught up with that. So we had the same problem with ecology, and we ended up doing a memorandum of understanding with ecology so that their staff knew what was expected of them, and they know what we're supposed to do. Maybe that's what we should do. We should have a memorandum of understanding so we know what your staff is doing, and then they know what how we're gonna respond. Maybe we should have a better detailed plan here. From a personal perspective, all these regulations, I mean, I've got kids and grandkids, they're not gonna farm. My neighbors, I'm the last guy left on Whatcom Lake Road. I mean, people that drive up and down there, there's nobody there except I think Groom's got 5 cows left. When I moved there, everybody had animals. So what we're doing, whether we intend to or not, is getting rid of farming. There used to be a feed store at Dell's there on Kelly and the Guide. There used to be a feed store on the Guide. They're all gone. Everything's moving to Linden. There's nothing in South County. I go to Linden to get farm stuff now. I don't go to Bellingham anymore. So I'm here to tell you that when George Boggs shows up, he's doing what we've asked him to do, is tell you that we don't think there should be farm plans unless there's a pollution nexus to cause it. If a farmer's doing a good job on his own, leave him alone. Let him make his profit. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Sigatowitz, and I'm representing the Whatcom County Cattlemen's Association, which I am a board member of, and I was asked to speak on their behalf this evening. This is for all beef ranchers in Whatcom County. Onerous environmental regulations on farmers and ag producers are putting responsibility and previously successful farms out of business. Some farms have one person that they hired just to keep current with the current regulations. Doesn't do any farm work, field work, just sits in the office keeping a hold of regulations. The 5-year limitations will discourage continuing of active farming for issues likely beyond the farmer's control. One example is the best management practice of crop rotations. Please take all reference to ongoing ag and 5-year limits out of the critical areas ordinance. Ag should be as important as the environment. Critical goals should be given equal status. These critical goals should be given equal status in the critical areas ordinance. Not every landowner needs a farm plan. The cost of each plan is often prohibitive for a small landowner already financially stressed. There is a current backlog of applications and renewals of farm plans in Whatcom County, as in excess of 42 farmers are waiting for the renewal of their farm plan. They can't get it done because there is no staff in the Conservation Office to do it at this time because of the backlog. There's also a lack of licensed staff to process these requests. And the closest private person to process a farm plan is out of Oregon, because it takes almost 2 years to bring somebody up to the qualifications to be licensed to sign a farm plan. When you state that there could be something online that the person could sign or send in, those plans have to be signed by our Conservation District engineer in order to be validated. And also the fact that I also I gave a copy of my remarks. The county should use the best managed practices guidelines. The lack of agriculture production knowledge on the current county council is quite evident. The Whatcom County Council would be guided more effectively if it used one of the examples of Snohomish County. They appointed an independent person to be the ag advisor to the council. Thank you.
Amy Glasser. Is it okay if I talk about the jail tax? That's for now? Okay. I didn't know if there was a different part of the hearing. I just want to say that the county has, and the city has done some really great things on reducing the incarceration rate in our county, and to please wait on doing anything with the jail tax until we enact some of the recommendations of the Vera Institute and the Incarceration and Reduction Task Force, and do more pretrial release programs and more electronic home monitoring and more drug court and more mental health court, and all the things that are getting the reductions down. So instead of doing a tax first, let's first see what we can do to get all those numbers down, and then we will probably know how many beds we'll actually need, which I think will be very, very, very small. And in addition to Division Street, there might not be much of a jail to build. So please consider that before you put anything on the ballot or approve anything on the ballot. Thank you.
My name is Joy Gilfillan. I too am opposed to putting the jail tax on the ballot. I'd like to talk about economics as a destructive and degenerative economic spiral, which is a death spiral for a community, as different from a constructive or a regenerative economic spiral. This is like doing internal rates of return on large-scale real estate investment projects. I haven't seen a model for this, which is one of the reasons I've been harping on the subject that we really do need to look at a needs assessment. Vera can bring us some data. The alternative, the Incarceration Prevention Task Force can bring us some data. But this is a common sense understanding of it from a person who used to run the Visitor and Convention Bureau in Whatcom County. The multiplier effects of a negative depreciating investment can actually gut your economic vitality of the community. Most of the middle class is concerned about why we don't have economic vitality. And when Paul, you were at our meeting the other day, you talked about the income streams for the county being primarily from sales tax or property tax, and you and I both know that there's also fees and permits and all that. But there's another key component of generating revenue for a county, and that is economic development itself generates more income from sales taxes and for volume of local business that's running through your economy. The second one is saving money. In the jail situation, if we have one person who fails into the system, the average annual cost of incarceration for that person, depending on who you measure it by, whether it's local at $36,000 or $55,000 statewide, or $75,000 a year nationally, if you calculate the negative cost to the taxpayers of paying the $55,000 times 20 years or 40 years, it's close to $2.5 million. That's money that's coming directly from taxpayers. Where's it going? It's going to government. But there's a ripple effect of that negative impact, and that negative impact is about an 11 times magnifier. And that is the social cost from every person who is traumatized and goes into the system. So if you have an 11 times magnifier, you've actually got collateral damage that's caused by that person, which is close to $200 million. On top of that, the thing that most people don't even talk about, and it's not discussed anywhere, is that there is something that I've coined called privateering. Privateering is the cost to the inmate who goes into the system.
30 seconds, please.
The average person will spend $10,000 once they're arrested, whether they are guilty or not, and that money isn't even calculated into the government coffers. It's not calculated in the social cost. It's not calculated anywhere except to the inmate. These are excessive costs that have been occurred over the last 10 to 20 years that most people don't even talk about. If we don't calculate these excessive costs, we don't understand the negative impact of incarceration on our community. If you think about it, that same $55,000 invested in 10 people at $5,000 each turns a tax consumer into a taxpayer and a generator of revenue. That's the next conversation.
Amy Malone, Bellingham resident, also talking about the jail tax. And I wanted to talk about something that hasn't really been discussed, just only briefly brought up, and that's the very real possibility that the county seat of Bellingham, with the building of the jail in Ferndale, the county seat could very easily move to Ferndale. There will be substantial impacts on people all across our community for moving the jail out of its current location, which is in the county seat. It will displace people, businesses, and services, change commercial routes, habits of how we do business, and all our government-related processes. All the cultural, economic, social, psychological, and physical impacts need to be studied. We still are lacking a true needs assessment. In fact, even the question of whether our local jail can be legally moved out of the county seat needs to be studied for implications and ripple effects of that move. The sheriff's office has to be in the county seat. How's that going to work running the jail in Ferndale but still having to have his office in Bellingham? Thousands of people and hundreds of millions of dollars a year of commerce will change patterns. The downtown core of Bellingham will slowly be siphoned out to Ferndale to their benefit and to massive and debilitating effect of Bellingham. What will the impact be on lifestyles and business habits of the office staff members, jail officers, arresting officers, the various levels of attorneys and their research staff, prosecutors' offices, public defenders' offices, medical support, doctors, psychologists, and more? Will arrestees be brought to Bellingham on a daily or weekly basis? How does this affect their right to due process? How will public defenders easily be able to go and see their clients when they have to be driving back and forth to Ferndale? What are the impacts on companies such as bail bonds, food vendors, taxi drivers, and transportation services? Businesses and services will slowly move out to Ferndale. It will just seem logical and make sense because that's where the jail is. It will make processes more convenient to law and justice personnel. In addition, what is the impact on the nonprofit organizations, advocacy, and mediation groups that work with people from all sides of the process? How will it impact the staff and administrative people, the inmates, the victims, the reentry programs, and anyone else who serves this population?
30 seconds, please.
How does this emotionally affect those who are being charged, have not yet gone to trial, and have not yet been found guilty to be in a large compound like the one being proposed in Ferndale? What is the impact of not being able to have easy access to their defenders or their support people? What is the impact of being tried by video and not by humans? What are the physical and health impacts of living next to waste and garbage and medical hazards facility next to potential coal train industrial traffic? All these considerations and more were brought up in the noble cause corruption case filed in March of 2013. These are issues the Restorative Community Coalition has been talking about for over 4 years and beyond, still have not been addressed. We need a true and valid needs assessment before anything else goes on the jail, and we need to focus on fixing the current jail, which is now finally going through. Thank you.
Patrick Ellison, 4825 Alderson Road. I am so glad I never ran for county council. People have said, you got a tremendous job here. There's 2 issues before you tonight that I can really identify with. But you know, the farming issue, the water issue, I was a 4-H'er way back when. I did all sorts of reports that I didn't have the skill and to do, but you know, somehow Ed Else always stepped in and helped me out, and I really did appreciate that, and I still appreciate it. Farmers are in a tough situation, and I'm sorry they look at you as the enemy. Watch out for Monsanto and Bayer. They're up there, they have wonderful satellites. They can tell you when you should water, or if you should water, or where you should spray your latest chemicals to take care of your crops. That's a bigger danger. Long time ago, somebody said, oh, you've heard this from many before, I just want to be able to gift a little bit of my land to my son or daughter-in-law or somebody, and they can build a house on it. I told you then it was a gift that will keep on giving because of the amount of money it takes and tax money to support people living out there. We need to help the farmers. We have people who are out there, bless them, I don't know why but they need to be helped one way or another, but they need to realize it's going to cost more for them to be out there, and they need to pay taxes and support services, and they can't expect the high quality of support that you get by living in one of the cities. So good luck with that. Oh, and good luck with the jail. I could talk forever about that one, but I won't tonight. Thanks.
Good evening, Mary Kay Robinson. I live in the city of Bellingham. I want to talk about the jail. First, a task force was created. They worked for months and months and hours assessing the needs. It was comprised of many individuals, a variety of stakeholders from a wide political spectrum. The jail proposal was put to the vote of the public and was narrowly defeated. The feedback? It was too big. Now, taking in that feedback, a compromise has been crafted, a smaller jail. A new smaller jail will still offer services and treatment for those who need it. Neither side, quite frankly, is entirely happy with the new jail proposal, but in any negotiation, both sides have to give a little. The staff at the jail need a safe space to work. The inmates at the jail need a safe and humane jail. We need space for treatment of inmates who need those services, and we need those in the penal system not to go to Yakima, but to stay near the support system of family and friends. We need to move forward. The smaller jail has the ability to be expanded if needed, and I look forward to implementing those very programs that reduce recidivism. All that takes time, though, and I look forward to the day when we can confidently say that the programs are working and that there's no need to expand. But we need to take care of everyone at the jail now. A compromise has been established. The mayors of all 7 cities in Whatcom County have endorsed the new proposal, and it's time to move forward. Thank you.
Mary Kay said it very graciously. Max Prey, Whatcom County. And I'm just going to tell you the same thing. Just get off the quick kick in the can, get the jail, put it on the ballot, let the people decide on that. I know a couple of you that definitely don't want a jail out in Ferndale, but do the right thing. Safety for everybody in the county is essential. That's the main job. So put it on the ballot, get it out, let people vote. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak during the open session?
Good evening, I'm Kristen Hanna, Bellingham. And you've all been working so hard on this jail issue, and I've been following it for quite some time. I'd like to talk to...
Can you get a little closer
today
to that? Yes, please. Thank you.
About history. We're at a time in history that's the end of barbarism. Since the cradle of civilization as we know it, humanity has expanded out. We've warred, we've conquered, and we have incarcerated and punished. But right now, we're not there anymore in history. We're moving forward. We know better. There's so many things that we know better. I was just thinking the other day, it wasn't that long ago that people got their tooth pulled at the barber shop. Around that same time, I think people considered burning witches to be a necessary evil. We've heard people testify before you and other councils that jail is a necessary evil. But is it? Is it? Was burning the witches a couple hundred years ago a necessary evil? That was the rationalization that was used when it was happening. And I think right now humanity is past the time when we put people in cages for mistakes. It's not a necessary evil. Continuing this incarceration, this kind of punishing mentality for maladaptive behavior is obviously the wrong approach. It's not working. And deep down, I think everybody knows that. It's just, what is the answer? And that's why we come back to thinking, oh, it's a necessary evil, we need to protect ourselves. I really do believe that Whatcom County can do better. Whatcom County can be a leader in the nation with innovative solutions to responding to maladaptive behavior. And I don't know all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. But I do applaud Whatcom County, and especially the city of Bellingham, for exploring the various alternatives to incarceration. And please
30
remember,
seconds, please.
jail really is not necessary. It's not a necessary evil, the same as burning witches, you know? It just isn't. So please consider that. Consider what's going to happen over the next 30 years, what's happened in the past 30 years, a lot of progress. So I don't know the answers, but I do know that just rushing forward, considering jail to be necessary, is a mistake.
Time.
Thank you.
Carol Perry, Whatcom County. I don't quite know what to say after watching the committee meetings today. This morning, when you were discussing the critical areas, brought back all the critical area advisory meetings that we attended. It kind of highlighted the fact that the Critical Areas Committee wasn't able to accomplish much. It was a circus. Then the material went to the Planning Commission. They didn't know what to do with it. It was too complicated. It got pushed on to you. This morning you took up the same things. It took George Boggs to come and try to unravel it. It's a classic example of overregulation. Even tonight, some of the testimonies from Mrs. Honcoop and the instructor from Linden and so forth. I think the intention is good, but when you get all those levels of regulation, makes me think of James Madison said, and I hope I can paraphrase it well. He said, what good is it that you elect representatives to represent you if the law becomes so complicated that the people can't understand it and they don't know if it's going to be a rule that they can depend on? And he said, if it gets to that point, the people lose faith in their government. And that's why when you have a $100 million project and you're talking about it tonight and there's nobody in the chamber. As I talk to people in the county, my family, my church, they've lost faith in the process. There's too many regulations. The farmers, listen to the recording of the farmers at the Planning Commission meeting where they talked about impervious surface. People are overwhelmed with regulation. You were overwhelmed this morning with the critical areas thing. You didn't know how it was going to affect the people who have to be under those regulations. So I just appeal to you. I loved it when a couple of you said when the Lahar thing came and it was bantered around for months, you just said, this is ridiculous. Take courage and be willing to say, this is ridiculous. You know, when you get to a point when the jail's gone on for months and months. Sorry, I wasn't prepared, but it was from my heart.
Anyone else like to speak during the open session? Seeing no one, we will close the open session and move to consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Whatcom County Finance and Administrative Services Committee met today. We considered items 1 through 6 on the consent agenda, and I would like to put forward items 1 through 5 initially. These all received unanimous approval, and I so move.
Okay, we have that motion in front of us. Ms. Brenner?
Oh, never mind, it's not consented. So you remove item 6?
Yeah, I want to vote on that separately.
Okay, I would like to remove item 5.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they want to remove? Okay, so we're considering items 1 through 4. Discussion on those? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Item 5.
Item 5 was to request authorization for the county executive to enter into a contract amendment between Whatcom County and Whatcom Conservation District for the Lake Whatcom Home Owner Incentive Program to modify the scope of work and extend the term of the agreement in the amount of $221,794 for a total amended contract amount of $271,794. This received unanimous approval, and I so move.
Okay, we have that motion in front of us. Any discussion? Ms. Brenner?
Yeah, I'm not supporting it mainly because it's coming from the flood tax. Used to be called the flood fee until somebody finally realized it's actually a tax. And I just feel like, we have really taken so much money out of that flood tax that if we have any major flooding that happens, and it will happen eventually, that any major flooding, we're not going to have the money to deal with it. I don't even like the way the homeowner incentive program is set up. It's like people are monetarily rewarded by being reimbursed for doing the right thing. I just think, your rights end when they infringe on your neighbors. So if somebody's, polluting the lake or doing something like that, we have other ways to deal with it. But it's giving money, and especially it coming out of the flood tax. And I really think we have to stop giving money to programs that have nothing to do with flooding.
Mr. Donovan?
I just want to point out that the flood fee / tax is unfortunately named, but the state legislature did change the purposes that we can use that for stormwater prevention, and that's what this program is doing. But I do appreciate Ms. Brenner's points that there is maybe more that needs to be done than just having an incentive program to accomplish some things that we might need carrots and sticks and not just carrots.
Ms. Brenner?
Well, the state does that all the time. They con the county into passing a tax. Oh, flood, yeah, everybody agrees with that. And once it's passed and people thought it was for flooding, then they tell you can use it for something else. So to me, that's being dishonest with the people who voted for it. I mean, I know what they did it afterwards, and, but it doesn't make it right.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Sadhu?
The question I have, if we don't do this incentive program, which I quite some extent agree, are you proposing that we should tax all the people in the watershed for whatever is happening, and then people who improve their property or reduce that, they should not be taxed? Is that the proposal?
No, my proposal would be people who are not contributing to the problem in any way shouldn't pay any money to it.
So how do you know that?
It should be a fee based on service.
No, I just wanted to know, let's go a little further. How would you know this guy is polluting, this guy is not polluting?
Well, a lot of times they can show you how they're not polluting. They can, they can just send in. Well, like I'm living on property and I'm right on a creek, and I can prove to you with what I've done, I have absolutely no contribution to any runoff into that creek.
No, I'm just looking at when you are dealing with 3,000-5,000 properties, and tens of thousands of acres, right?
Yeah.
We got to propose some practical way to manage that. I'm not really against what you're saying, I'm just saying how you are proposing to manage it. Like, you don't like this, I can concur with that, but what is the alternate? Alternate is not just ignore it, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm just asking you, how would you do it?
Well, maybe kind of like how Birch Bay did it, but they didn't do the way I thought they should do it. And they set up their own district in the watershed, and and they could show, people could show who was contributing and who wasn't contributing to the problem. The people who were not contributing shouldn't have had to pay.
So,
To me, it should be a fee for service, not a tax.
no, I agree with you. Now, you're just saying we add another regulation. We just talked about the regulation.
no,
Your
no,
proposal
that's
is
not-
also we need a regulation. Now, people have to prove that
You wanna
I'm
hear-
not polluting.
One person
like-
at a time, please.
That's baloney, I'm sorry, okay, me.
Sorry.
Yes.
That is absolute baloney.
It's not baloney.
It is
You-
so, you're putting
when you
words-
write,
It's my turn now.
sorry,
You're putting words in
Each-
my
I'm
mouth,
sorry.
and that's not what,
I'm sorry.
Each speaker, please be recognized and respect the other speaker.
Sure.
Or
well, I did it first, so he gets one bang too, and I get it too. Anyway, no, there are ways to set it up where it doesn't cost anybody who's doing it, who's not contributing to pollution. And yes, it will take longer, maybe, I don't know though. There's a lot more people in the Birch Bay area than there are in the Lake Whatcom watershed. So, I think.
Mr. Donovan?
Oh, it's just, this is part of a larger conversation I think we're going to be having about stormwater issues that require funding around Lake Whatcom.
Mr. Sadoo?
No, I'm not really opposing you. Don't take it personally. What my purpose is that when we say something, we must have some way to alternatively articulate that if we don't do this, why do this? If you just say, don't do this, that's only half of the argument. The other half of the argument is, okay, if we don't do this, how do we do this? Or the alternate is, maybe we won't spend the money on the lake phosphorus, and that's another option. We don't have to. And let the runoff come out and we will deal it with maybe next 25 years from now, then whosoever is there, let them deal with it.
Ms. Brenner?
Well, that is so ridiculous. I'm not even going to answer that part. But the other part, which if we want to deal with specifically, and I've been very, I have done this every single time we're taking money out of the flood fee that has nothing to do with flood issues. I'm just not going to vote to use flood fee money. Yeah, you're right. Councilmember Donovan's right. We were allowed to use it for other things, but not when the people voted for it. And it was called flood fee. You want to change the name, put it back on the ballot, and let people vote if they want to tax themselves for all kinds of other things. That's fair. But I'm not, they didn't vote. The vote had nothing to do with these other things. It had to do with flooding, and everybody's concerned about flooding. So.
Any more discussion on the motion? Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chair, the city of, residents of Bellingham pay approximately 37% of the flood fund, and I'm going to support this because I think they're entitled to get something for their money.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That passes 6-1 with Ms. Brenner opposed. Number 6.
Number 6, request authorization for the county executive to enter into an interlocal agreement between Whatcom County and the city of Bellingham to coordinate the design and cost sharing of the West Horton Road extension in the amount of $156,070. This received a vote of 2 with 1 abstention, and I so move.
Okay. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
1 abstention.
That passes 6-1, or 6-0 with 1 abstention. Other items from finance.
Mr. Chair, the next item is an ordinance amending Whatcom County Budget 6 request in the amount of $572,516. This received unanimous approval, and I so move.
Discussion on this motion. Please call the roll.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ken Mann,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Carl Weimer,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, the next item is an ordinance closing the 2015 Central Plaza Improvement Fund 360. This received unanimous approval, and I so move.
Okay, we have that motion in front of us. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ken Mann,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Carl Weimer,
Yes.
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown.
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
Mr. Chair, the next item is a resolution amending the 2017 Flood Control Zone District and Subzone Budget's third request in the amount of $15,000. In this case, the council is acting as the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors. This received unanimous approval, and I so move.
Discussion on this motion? Mr. Donovan?
I brought this up earlier. I don't think it should be coming out of the flood fund. It's for legal work that is related to water, maybe stormwater, but I see it as a general fund thing, and I'm not going to support it.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Todd Donovan,
No.
Ken Mann,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu,
Yes.
Carl Weimer,
No.
Barbara Brenner,
No.
Red Brown,
No.
Barry Buchanan,
No. That fails 2-5.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to add that if this was from the general fund, I would approve it. So. Next item up is a request authorization of the county executive to enter into a contract between Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District and Whatcom Conservation District to support the pollution identification and correction program in the amount of $353,366. In this case, the council is acting as the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors. This received unanimous approval, and I so move.
Discussion on this motion? Ms. Brenner?
If this was out of the general fund, I would support it.
Other discussion?
I actually think this one is funded from a completely separate source.
No, I asked him specifically, and it's funded, it may have other sources too, but it's coming from flood fund money too.
I think this is a pass-through from the Department of Health.
Yeah, but there's some kind of match. I specifically asked who came and talked to
It's
us.
fully funded through the Washington State Department of Health.
Yeah.
And we don't do any match?
It's not what it says. It's just fully funded through the Washington State Department of Health.
Okay, well, I asked that question today and was told it's partially funded from our flood fund.
I don't remember that.
Okay, then I'll support it.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, there was nothing else from finance.
Chair, may I have a moment?
You may.
If the council would care to reintroduce the $15,000 fee and have that come out of the general fund, we'd be able to pay bills instead of just allowing it not to happen. As you may remember, it was for hiring Tadas, the attorney, for the Hearst decision. I think it would be poor form if we wouldn't take care of our obligations. So $15,000 on an approximately $200 million a year budget, I'm not too worried about it coming out of either the flood fund or the other ones. You make your political statement with it, but we really do need to get this taken care of. Otherwise, we wouldn't have put it on the agenda for action.
Mr. Brown?
Madam Clerk, can we introduce that and vote on it tonight with that amendment?
I believe you could vote to reconsider this evening the vote that you already took.
But to amend the
No,
funding
because we
source?
need to change the funding source.
I don't know if that can happen with this.
Well, it's a resolution.
We have to reintroduce, don't we?
It has the force of law because it's a flood
Right.
resolution.
Oh,
We're-
right.
We're coming back with the contract next meeting anyway, so if you could introduce it, amend it, and introduce the ordinance tonight, that would.
Okay, and I'll do that later on then. So,
Okay. We are at executive appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. Request confirmation of the county executives' reappointments of Jana Finkbonner and Jody Sipes to the Northwest Senior Services Board. Do I have a motion to confirm?
I move to confirm.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next one is to request confirmation of the county executive's appointment of Sherry Robinson to the Whatcom County Public Health Advisory Board. Do I have a motion to confirm?
I move to confirm.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Third one is request confirmation of the county executive's appointment of Ramona Abbott to the Whatcom County Ethics Commission.
Move to confirm.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Introduction items. Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull separately number 3 and discuss it.
Number 3 is pulled separately. Anybody else have anything they want to pull?
We need to add that one we just talked about, the funding one.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
So we have an addition too.
Right.
the $15,000 one.
We have to read that in the record, though.
So I would entertain a motion to put this on our introduction agenda for tonight.
So
with
moved.
the change of funding source.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consider this as number 5 on the introduction agenda. So we have items 1, 2, 4, and 5 to introduce. Do I have a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Item number 3.
So item number 3, Mr. Chair, was the ordinance related to the ballot initiative, and I'd like to propose putting in the version the clean version as outlined in the red packet as a substitute ordinance for what we have in our council packet.
Okay?
What's in red? Why is mine not showing?
This is the clean version, right?
Yeah, there's 3 versions, in this red packet, there are 3 versions.
Oh, the 3 versions are all in
So- Well, and if I may, I'll explain the different versions.
There it is.
Well, let's start out with getting a motion on the table.
Well, that's my motion, so I need a second.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Just a second, I'm
So
finding it.
discussion.
Just a sec.
Mr. Sadoo.
On page 2, the 4th line from the bottom, it reads, year's end is expected to last until repayment of the total capital cost. So when I was reading through, I think the expected to, we can just change it to shall.
Where are you talking about again?
Okay, page 2, line 37.
Oh. Oh,
Like,
Yeah.
it is putting somewhat of uncertainty that is expected to last. When we have a sunset clause and everything else on there, all I'm saying is that it should be and shall last until the repayment of total capital cost of jail facilities.
All right, I accept that amendment.
Okay, one more. On page 4, in the wording, of course, this wording is going to be redone by the prosecutor or attorney. I just noticed something I just wanted to bring up is on the line 10, page 4, safety purposes, including costs associated with construction, maintenance, and operation of jail. The word financing is missing. Maybe it's my understanding the cost of financing is not part of the resolution.
where should financing be?
the cost of financing. That should be the very first word when it says including costs associated with financing, construction, maintenance, and operation. Because if you look at the wording,
Talking about like the debt service.
That's what we're paying for.
But
yeah, if you look at the main definition of this resolution, the word financing is in there and it's not in there. I just wanted clarification for that.
Mr. Brown?
So Mr. Schroeder deliberately removed this from the beginning of the document. It wasn't, I can't remember if it was in the ballot language itself. He gave me an explanation for it, and I can't remember what.
Okay, that's fine. I just noticed a difference, and I wanted to point out.
County Executive Laws, the changes were made at the request of council. Council member, Tyler Schroeder, Deputy Executive, looked at it. Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Dan Gibson looked at it and put his blessing on it. But you make a good point, and over the next 2 weeks, we'll get an answer to that question.
Yes.
I think we believe that when it says costs associated with the construction, maintenance, and operation is that the construction includes the financing with it. But we will double check that for you, and we'll have the ability with the introduction of this tonight is if we need to make that one word change next week.
It does say in this site, so.
Right. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Sure.
Ms. Brenner?
well, we don't usually say that word financing because it's understood. You've got costs, C-O-S-T-S, associated with all these different things. And especially with construction, who's going to build something that doesn't have financing costs attached to it? So I don't know that we've ever put that in there for when we're, when we're doing, what do they call this? The way, I don't think we do it. I don't think we use that word. But I mean, I'm okay with it, but I don't think we've ever done it before.
Any other discussion?
I'm actually going to propose we just insert the word financing, and Mr. Gibson can remove it if he feels it's appropriate when he does the ballot language.
Maybe it has something to do with the word count. I don't know.
Possibly, but he can, I mean, as we all know, he's.
Could be simple as that.
Yeah. So, but he's the ultimate. My understanding is that he has the right to edit this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to propose we just insert the word financing between the words with and construction would now read with financing, comma, construction. Would you accept that?
Yes. So that's a friendly amendment to your own motion?
Yes, but he's a seconder, so.
He's seconded, so good job.
Permission.
Okay. Everybody clear on the motion? Okay, any more discussion?
The only thing I would add is the reason there are 3 copies in here is we just provided a means to follow the changes should any questions have arisen. But it's only the first version that's intended to be introduced.
All right, all those in favor of the motion,
Oh,
say aye.
wait, I'm sorry. Is the motion just to accept for introduction or to make your changes?
Oh.
I think he accepted everything
Introduction.
friendly, and then he friendlied himself, so.
Okay.
This is on the main motion.
Okay,
This
so
is for
let me just say,
introduction.
I'm gonna just vote against it because I don't think it's any surprise, I don't support this, and I just want to speak to why I'm voting on something this important, and when it comes up, but I don't support the location, I don't support the size, I don't support the cost, I don't support sending another tax increase to the voters that we just sent to them just 2 years ago. I think it'll fail again, and I don't think that just because, as some folks at public testimony said, just because we've had lots of meetings and nobody's happy with it, doesn't actually mean it's good policy, and doesn't mean it justifies a tax increase. So I don't think we've got it right yet, and it's too important to not get right.
Mr. Donovan?
I also am not going to support this, but I think it's a better proposal than we had 2 years ago, which I wasn't comfortable with. And there were at least 5 reasons I think that didn't pass. That one was it was a sales tax, excuse me. Another thing was the size, the location, people not being confident that money was being spent on diversion programs, and then the kind of arcane financing agreement between the jurisdictions. We fixed that. So, I mean, we've made progress. The financing agreement is, the parties involved are I think, happy with that. This proposal we got today to actually commit to money, which I hope can be read as new money going to incarceration prevention stuff, I think that addresses some of those things, but we're still, some of the big issues that I think were out there, the size hasn't really changed, the location. I mean, I could give up on one of those maybe, but it's still a sales tax, it's still, which is, you know, the only maybe way we can do this. But the location and size thing, we really haven't flushed out a discussion here. But I think it's a better proposal than we had before, but it's still, I'm not there yet, so.
Ms. Brenner.
I want to speak to the sales tax part of it. I believe very strongly that property taxes are way more regressive than sales taxes, especially in Washington and Whatcom County specifically. The reason is people who are renters think, oh, well, that's just going to go to the rich property owners. And the point is, if you're a renter, your landlord is going to pass that cost right on to you. And I've had a lot of interns from the university who've said that to me, and then I mention that, and they go, oh, I never thought of that. Whereas sales tax, you can really control how much you do and don't spend. Food is free. You know, I don't buy new clothes. I buy used clothes, and it's a lot cheaper. I mean, so there are ways that people can keep their costs down with sales tax. You can't do that with a property tax. It's a finite amount, and it's a finite addition to the finite amount, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I do think that sales tax, and we have a lot of Canadian visitors. So it also, and they're getting the same services from our law enforcement and everybody else as the people who live here. And we actually get a lot of tourism from all over the place. It just seems like that is the fairest way to ensure that everybody's paying into the cost of public safety and all the other really good, you know, the diversion and mental health and substance abuse issues where we can do a lot of positive stuff. But it affects everybody, whether you're a landowner or not. And I think that that's just it's a much broader way to ensure that people, you know, not only have it spread out, but that people have other options besides having to pay the sales tax.
Other discussion? Mr. Brown?
I'm just going to speak in favor of the introduction, if for no other reason than we have spent 2 years working on this again, and I think the voters have, they deserve the opportunity to tell us whether they support this or not. I don't think it's up to us to decide on their behalf. I think we should put this forward and let them decide what they want to do.
Any further discussion?
I wanted to add is that we don't have good options to us available. This has been going on for many years, almost 10 years. And I have listened to a lot of voters or groups of people who have said that we can just go fix the current jail. Yes, we can go do that, but the whole purpose, what the people who are saying we should not have a new jail are the people who are wanting to provide the services inside the jail to the inmates, which is a humane thing to do. And I'm torn in between that first thing, to fix the jail, we have to come take money out of our current expenditure. And the second thing is, even if we go fix it, we are still not able to provide those things. And it may take us maybe another 5-7 years to get a perfect plan. And many times, perfect is the enemy of good. So to me, I will support this because we need to make a decision rather than not make a decision and leave it down the road and again down the road. So it's not a perfect proposition. I have said that about the location also. Cost, it's costing us $220,000 per bed. It scares me, but at the same time, there are costs, which are costs, and this is not something that the administration, or we will have some more discussion on the actual total cost as we get the more design and everything, and my effort will be to reduce that cost if we can. But I think it's time for the council to put it in front of the voters rather than 3 or 4 people saying yes or no. I'd rather have 80,000 people who are actually the payers of this cost for next 30 years. Let them make that decision.
Ms. Brenner.
I liked a lot of what you said, but I'm going to disagree with one thing that several people have said about the other option would be to fix the jail. I don't think the jail's fixable.
Yeah.
The materials that were used on that jail when it was built were substandard to begin with, and they got away with it. They never should have. So the only way you could fix that jail would be to completely demolish it and build something in its place. The problem with that is that you'd almost have to build up instead of out, although you could build over the parking lot. But I wasn't on board with building out instead of up, but after looking at all the data and understanding things better, which I didn't at first, I do believe the maintenance and operations costs, which are by a huge amount, is going to be more of the cost than the building of the jail, that building up requires way more staffing, and it's much more expensive. So I guess I'm not sure I'd say it's not a perfect solution. It's a perfect solution for the mess that the state and feds have put counties in, or local jurisdictions, not just counties. So we are dumped on with a whole bunch of things over the years that we never used to be, without any, additional funding to deal with it from them. Unfunded mandates, they call it. So I do think it's the best solution for the imperfect situation that we're all in.
Mr. Mann.
Sorry, I just have to make one more push. Crime rates are dropping nationally, and incarceration rates are dropping too. And as technology changes, we are not going to need this large jail. And we're going to spend, I've said it before, we're going to spend $100 or $150 million on a monument to a failed paradigm. It doesn't work. And we're going to build the last big dumb jail in America, and we're going to be embarrassed.
Any more discussion? Ms. Brenner.
Well, saying it that way, I have to disagree, because I do know that we can use parts of it or different pods for other kinds of services rather than incarceration. And I asked that specifically and was told that yes, we can. So that really it makes me believe that we're going to have all kinds of options for that property. And the thing about putting it there, I'm trying to think how many miles Ferndale is from downtown Bellingham, or not even Ferndale, Slater Road. What is it, about?
About 9 miles, or we can check on the phone.
I don't think it's 9 miles. 11.5 minute drive, less than that, maybe I speed.
With their sirens on.
No, it's, I'm.
3 with the sirens on.
He knows.
Well, I really think it's, when I come from my place, which is east of the freeway and a bit further from the freeway, I'm here in 10 minutes, 15 at the most, and that's on, Northwest, that they put all these stops and this and that on. This is right off the freeway. So, and when you get off the freeway in Bellingham, you're like 2 minutes from
You've already told us before that you drive straight through the roundabouts.
Well, I try to make sure I've got room to do it, so, yeah, I mean, and I still, but it's still less, it's still quicker to come from west of Slater Road right there than it is from my place.
Do you have sirens? I don't have sirens.
I wish, no, but I'm just saying that people have been talking about this like it's way out in the boonies. And for a lot of the policing throughout the county, this is way more convenient because driving in downtown Bellingham traffic is also real difficult for a lot of people. So, it's not that it's way out there or something. Again, if somebody wanted it somewhere else other than, as long as it's got all that land, I'm fine.
Any further discussion? You just got done.
I know, but I forgot to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
And I want all that land because I want to keep saying it. I want to make sure that we have programs set up for people who are in there so they can grow crops and learn how to cook and eat so that they're vocationally trained for stuff, so that they can do animals as therapy. And to me, and if you haven't seen Pit Bulls and Parolees, please see it, but there's also Horse Whisperer. And it's just amazing how it changes people's lives when they look at something that's so needy, like some of the animals they deal with, and it makes a huge difference. So it's one of those things where we can actually be at the forefront of changing behavior and giving people hope.
Okay, now we're ready for the vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
So that passes 4-3.
So was that to introduce the
latest,
The amended version.
and remove the one that we have listed on introduction from the agenda?
That was my motion. Is that what you believed you were voting on?
To introduce it.
To introduce it.
Yeah.
No, but to remove the other one.
We're substituting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
mine. You
Thank
want us
you.
to vote
Yeah,
again?
yeah.
Mr. Chair, can I see the vote with show of hands, please, 4-3?
4-3.
Those against?
Donovan, Buchanan, and Mann. Okay, to committee reports. First committee we had this morning was Special Committee of the Whole. We continued our review of the council and staff changes to the Critical Areas Ordinance, and got about a third of the way through the remaining issues that we have. Finance.
Mr. Chair, there was nothing else directly from Finance, but I do have a request. Want that now?
You didn't have anything else?
No. 'Cause we-
Public Works was,
Oh, we moved that thing.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So next, we had another committee of the whole, executive session with Attorney Dan Gibson, and we just talked about some potential legal action. Public Works, Public Safety,
that was canceled.
that was council.
It'll be rescheduled.
Other items.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a request of the prosecutor's office to provide us with an update in executive session on pending and potential jail-related litigation.
What was the second?
No, I had another item.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion? Okay.
Is this something we need to vote on, or is it just an introduction?
To me, that's something that I'm not sure we
Okay, so you're.
introduce.
The prosecutor's office is fine with doing that. I don't think the council really has a procedure for a council member request. I certainly don't think that there's a requirement that it be voted on, so however you want to handle it.
We don't
What
do
would you
that.
prefer? Would you prefer just setting that up with the prosecutor's office or a formal motion? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter to me. I think either way is fine. If Madam Clerk has no preference, I just leave it as my request and the prosecutor's office can respond. Is that fine for you?
Oh, I wanted to talk about another point is that what we heard about 4-H and FFA.
Oh, well, let's finish this.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I thought it was finished.
Madam Clerk, what's your preference?
I think we're still thinking about it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I don't think it's.
I always prefer a motion and a vote, but if Karen
Okay,
doesn't think
let's
it's
go do that.
necessary.
Let's go do that.
Make it clean. So
Okay, that's
my
fine.
motion is, I think Madam Clerk's clear on what my request is. That's my motion.
Oh, I second that.
Okay, so that motion is seconded. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes
I'm
unanimously.
abstaining.
You're abstaining?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure what it is.
Passes 6-0 to 1 abstention. So we're still on other items. I don't have anything. Do you have anything?
Yeah, first I wanted to say, and I should have said it already, in regards to Councilmember Brown's comment that there's 37% of the population in Bellingham, so he was voting for flood fee for the PIC program, which has nothing to do with flooding. I want to remind everybody that Bellingham received money for flooding issues for that, on that item that was on the ballot. So it wasn't like they don't have flooding issues, they do, and it was part of the part of the cost that was on that ballot measure. The other thing is, it's council business, so I guess, can I? Okay. This is, oops, am I okay? All right. We got a letter from Suzanne Rosser of an organization up in Point Roberts, and she said that they were looking, maybe, Jack, maybe you can relay this on to staff. They're looking for a study, a water flow study regarding Point Roberts that was done some years ago, and she hasn't been able to find it anywhere. And she was hoping, this was to all council members, she was hoping that we could help her find that, because there's issues they're dealing with that they'd like to have that study, if you could do that. Yeah. And then there's, we got a letter from Paradise Lakes Country Club, which urges us to continue support for funding for the Firewise program in Western Washington State, or urges us to support it. This has to do with wildfires, so I would like to see a presentation if possible. It could be in natural resources, or since it's public safety, it could be in my committee, that'd be fine. I'd like to see a presentation about what this program is. She went into some detail about it, but I don't really know. I'd never heard of the program before. So I think it would be real helpful to have a program or have a presentation on something like that. So that's my two things for county stuff.
Mr. Donovan?
Yeah, I have been in contact with people who are interested in having a conversation about immigration enforcement. And I don't know the best way to, they have some proposals. Councilmember Weimer and I have been speaking with people. There's concerns in the community about how our law enforcement might be interacting with people in the immigrant community. And we've had some conversations with the sheriff about this. There's people out there who want to be heard. I'm willing to, introduce their proposal, but I want to get a sense of how we could potentially do that in a committee of the whole meeting if people would be interested in doing that. And I guess I just want to have people keep an open mind about the potential benefits of doing this, getting the sheriff in here, getting the community in here, hearing their concerns. And there's not a particular committee that may be public safety that it would fit in, but it seems like it would be a committee of the whole thing. And if people are interested in doing that, that's what I'm trying to get a feel for. So.
Mr. Brown?
I'm not totally clear as to what you're asking for.
A discussion of proposals to prevent law enforcement from enforcing immigration policies, or the things that our sheriff is saying we are not doing in terms of, working with ICE in terms of immigration enforcement, but actually getting something codified that says we're not going to do this, and having that conversation with not just our sheriff, but people who are perceiving to be affected by law enforcement. And I'm hoping we can have that conversation. I don't know another way except for proposing this, as the clerk suggested this would be the way to bring this up.
Are you saying you just want to have like an open forum?
No, actually propose an ordinance that, coming from the community, that then we can look at and we can discuss.
So, are you saying you just want to have a discussion you want the ordinance to show up in a committee of the whole, and then it would be on the agenda, and so you want to know if that's something we are even willing to discuss?
Yeah,
Is that the question?
what a good process would be for doing that, if it's something people are willing to do.
I'm willing to have the discussion. I think I already have my mind made up on the topic, which is probably not in line with whatever proposal would come forward, but I basically think our law enforcement, Bellingham Sheriff, does an awesome and amazing job, and they're super tolerant and transparent and have been very open about their policies, and I'm fine with their policies, but I'm not an expert on the subject. I'm certainly open to hearing concerns from the community and having a proposal come forward in any committee where it's appropriate, and voting against it if I think that's what I want to do, but certainly I'm always open to having the conversations.
Ms. Brenner?
Are you talking about creating a sanctuary county?
No, I wouldn't use that word.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't either. One of the reasons that I kind of agree with what Councilmember Mann said, we're one of the very few border counties, not only in the state, but in the whole country. And, we have to have a decent relationship with the people at the border. So if there's some things that certain law enforcement people aren't doing, I almost feel like this is kind of saying, and I don't know what it's about, so I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm a little nervous about us opening up something that makes it look like we're picking on law enforcement, because I agree, I do think they do an excellent job, and I don't think they actively go, I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, and I'm not trying to insinuate that, but I'm just saying that this is a concern that's out there in our community. I believe what the sheriff tells us, but there are people out there who are concerned about this and would like something codified more than what we have. And I'm willing to propose something like that.
Okay.
If it's a conversation that doesn't go anywhere, maybe, if there's not support for this, maybe they don't want to do it. But I'm just representing this concern.
Mr. Brown?
So I want to first off by saying I'm very supportive of the policy of not mixing immigration enforcement with law enforcement, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The evidence has shown that when you do that, you end up with victims being very reluctant to come forward, which makes them very subject to being re-victimized. This is particularly true of victims of domestic violence. It also discourages people from seeking medical attention if they need it, which then turns a minor issue into can turn a minor issue into a significant issue. And there's also the public health issues in terms of we want any citizen or any resident or any person, no matter what their status, making sure that they neither contract nor distribute a communicable disease. So we want them to be able to access public health issues without fear. That being said, my reluctance in doing what you're asking is I think there's this unfounded, unwarranted, undeserved suggestion that our existing police force, both the Sheriff's Department and the local police forces, are engaging in this behaviour, and I've seen absolutely no evidence that they are enforcing immigration laws. In fact, every single conversation I've ever had with a law enforcement officer on this very topic is they are reluctant to get involved because they see the damage it does to community policing. So I'm reluctant to give any weight to the suggestions that our officers are acting in a way that is contrary to what I understand it. So that's my concern.
Ms. Brenner?
Well, maybe a better idea would be to bring forward some cases that you think there's been a problem, because I have to agree. I do know that there's a certain group or people or something that would like us to be a sanctuary county, and I think that's a very bad idea, being on the border. And we're not just talking about one ethnic group here, we're talking about people from all over. And to me, it's a can of worms unless there's been some kind of abuses. And it seems like if you know of them, if you know of any, it would be really nice if you either shared with us or with the sheriff or somebody to start off that way, rather than, I don't know what you're doing, so.
Councilmember Donovan.
Yeah, I'll respond to that. And again, I say I'm not disparaging our law enforcement. I think the concern might be, we have an elected sheriff, that sheriff might not be around. Do we have a policy that codifies what we want to be happening in terms of law enforcement? And again, I'm representing concerns that have come to me. I might hear third hand that things are going on different than what we might be hearing from our sheriff, but I have no evidence of that. I don't necessarily believe that, but I think the idea is, just like when we're trying to commit funding for mental health services for our jail, if it's not codified and written down, how do we know what's going to happen in the future? And if we have a different sheriff who's not as good as the one we have, how do we know that policy might not change? So that's the concern that I'm hearing.
Mr. Brown.
Yeah, to piggyback off what Mrs. Brenner has just said, I'm a little concerned this is a solution looking for a problem. And I'd rather respond to a problem if you or someone else can provide well-documented evidence that this is in fact a problem, in which case I would be very interested in getting involved. But I've never heard any evidence from any first-person account that this has been a problem.
Ms. Brenner.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, I'm the one that staff always says, call Barbara Brenner with any, so I hear from and I'm in the phone book, unlike probably most of the rest of you guys. I'm actually in that.
What is a phone book?
Yeah, exactly. I've still got one and I'm in it. So I'm really easy to get a hold of. And I am friends with, quite a few immigrants in the county, and I don't ask anything about any of their status. I really don't care. But I'm not hearing that. So I almost think what you're looking for is to codify what the sheriff already says is going on, and I'm fine. Let him draft it and bring it to us, and you work with him or something, and then we could maybe vote on something like that. I think that's fine. But I'm not sure exactly where you're going with this, that's all. So.
I would suggest, sorry, were you going to say that?
Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I also actually kind of want to dial back a little bit of what I said about always willing to have the conversation. I am, but when I just was remembering what happened across the street, it's Bellingham when they brought up this topic, and so much was made and so much energy and time and angst was expended on an issue that, in my observation and in the reports that I don't get from anyone, that we have a problem. I'd want to see a proposal first, or you said some folks have a proposal or things they would like to see codified. Maybe that could be distributed to us in writing first, and we could then evaluate whether or not it's worth launching a public discussion and all the, it's a hot button topic, obviously, the last, 6 months.
To be candid, the reason I'm doing it this way is because I don't want to go through the experience that the city had, and I think the people who I've been talking with are going to be, I don't know how to put this, that do you not want to go forward if this isn't going anywhere? But I just, I want to offer this as something that's out there, see what the kind of will or interest is here. And yeah, so maybe that would be a way to proceed, is here's something written before we even have a hearing on it. People can look at it and just say, no, I don't have any norm to proceed on those things.
Mr. Weimer?
Yeah, I've been just sitting here and like Mr. Donovan said, these people approached both of us and we met with them twice, I think. You may have had more conversations, and it is to some degree the same group that was across the street. And they have a proposed ordinance drafted, which is very strong, and my recommendation to them was that I wouldn't entertain that because of this, what went on. You know, I think at a 30,000 foot level, we're all on the same page, but as soon as you get into the weeds, like we saw across the street, it causes great divisiveness instead of bringing the community together. Now, on the other hand, I appreciate Mr. Donovan bringing this forward because there is this angst amongst the immigrant community and they don't seem to have an outlet for it. But I can't dream up how you create an outlet. And I certainly don't think the right way is to introduce a very strong ordinance that we're not going to support, so we all end up having a big fight that's not going to go anywhere. And that's what I've seen coming from these folks, and I'll just be blunt and say that because, you know, they don't want us just to have a discussion, they want us to introduce this ordinance and then have the discussion.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, and let me be very clear. Again, for all the reasons I outlined before, I do not believe that local law enforcement should be engaged in immigration enforcement. And if you can come up with documented first-hand accounts that it's been done, then I'll revisit the issue. But I think I'm very concerned that lacking that, we're just going to create a very divisive situation to solve a problem that we don't have any evidence directly exists.
No, and I appreciate that, and I've mentioned that, and Councilman Weimer's mentioned that to these folks too. This is the only way I can bring this up, you know, not violating quorum rules. So I'm getting a sense that this is not something we have interest in just jumping to a committee of the whole meeting with. I can circulate the proposed ordinance and see how we go from there. I actually suggested and like your idea of just codifying what the sheriff is saying we're doing. I think that's good policy. I don't know if that's going to satisfy the people who have these concerns. And I share Councilmember Weimer's concern that we're just going to be, I don't want to say making things worse, but not making people feel better if we feel more safe if we come up with something that is not going to be well received. But I'm bringing this out there because there are people who have these concerns. This is the only forum for talking about how we might talk about it. So.
Ms. Brenner?
My idea, though, is bring those concerns to the sheriff and say some of us are interested in codifying what he does. I think it's maybe already codified, but I don't know. So, yeah.
As an ordinance.
What?
As an ordinance.
Well, yeah. I mean, the things we have in our codes they started as ordinances. But yeah, I would talk to him first. I mean, it seems like we're kind of inadvertently putting him out there right now, and it would be nice it would be respectful to at least talk to him first about it.
I would, yeah.
So you have.
I have a sense that this is not something we're going to be bringing to a committee of the whole near you soon.
I went through the first round of it in Bellingham in 2009.
Oh, that's when it happened?
No, Bellingham had another version of it just not long ago, but the original was in 2009. It was a very huge, large hearing that was held at the municipal court building because we couldn't fit everybody in, and it was very divisive.
Oh.
Yeah.
I missed.
Okay, so you've got your plan there. Let's go to Councilmember Updates.
Oh, sorry, I just
go ahead.
I wanted to talk about that. Somehow we should inform the staff about 4-H and FFA, and maybe we should put a line item or something to address that, because that is an issue I think we should take care of. Yeah, by name, rather than just putting him into type 1 or 2. Since it is brought up, it's never occurred to me before, but I think that we should look into that a little more.
Look at an exemption or something.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Mr. Brown?
I would actually add to that, I would even suggest that we should consider allocating some money towards developing a video, just maybe a 30-minute video that just helps these kids understand how to be good environmental stewards. I mean, these kids are hopefully the next generation of farmers. And it would serve us all well if, as they're learning how to do animal husbandry, they also understand the environmental impacts. I'm not overly concerned about their activities from an environmental perspective because, as I said, they do them through the dry months, which is less likely to cause water pollution anyway. And if we just say to them, hey, just try and keep your animals away from the stream, don't let them defecate in the stream. I think most kids would understand, oh, that's good practice, just like we tell them put their recycling in the recycling bin.
I was going to suggest that we can ask those organizations, they may actually already have videos and materials, and we can make that formally available. We may not even have to do anything because this is a nationwide organizations, and they must have faced this in other places as well. So, and I've seen some of their other videos, and they're very informative and educational. So we can have a selection, put it in the library or school library, whatever have accessible. These days, everything can be on a YouTube, and that's all you need to do. So I like that idea.
This I think is a great opportunity for education versus enforcement.
Absolutely. Okay, Councilmember updates.
Nothing.
Mr. Mann? Mr. Brown?
Yes, last week I attended the speaking of agriculture, the Northwest Washington Fair Foundation annual banquet and auction, and it was just wonderful. And I'm trying, they did this audio of Paul Harvey talking about what's a farmer. And somebody's trying to get me a copy of that because I want it in writing. I think everybody should. It was just amazing. And it was mostly farmers there. Weren't too many elected officials, but I go there every year, and I got to tell you, they're worried. They are very worried about regulation, and especially people who are, trying to do a good job. It reminds me of what happened this morning when I brought up certain things, and even Councilmember Donovan didn't understand the definition, and I said, it should be this. Anyway, we went round and round and round because...
We'll fix that.
Well, but that's not right if we do stuff that's that onerous and gets so complicated that the average person can't look at it and say, oh, okay, I understand that. And I can see doing that on big operations, but you start doing it on these little teeny hobby farms, little teeny ones. We raised sheep, and I think we used to always have 4 to 6 sheep at a time. And we had chickens and geese, and we were real careful. And I was thinking today, I wouldn't probably even, and I'm more in tune with this stuff than most people because we get it in our face all the time. But I would have trouble with this stuff. So I just think that in some levels, we're going way too far. That's it.
Mr. Donovan?
No, nothing.
Okay, with no other business before the council, we stand adjourned.